Hello, trading is closed on March 23rd, 2021. Our disclaimers always item number 1 on the agenda. It's my trading plan for March 24th, 2021. I could be completely wrong, so trade at your own risk. Please follow the rules of my channel. Any comments not of general interest can be addressed to me at MEJT.trades@gmail.com. Look for the pattern with the early high. This is it, and tomorrow also has the early high. Typically, it's a rally day with a high in the final hour. Failure is a straight line drop. That's your straight line drop. Unless you invalidate the pattern by gapping and taking out this high promptly, which I think is really a long shot. Unless that happens, this shouldn't be the end of the drop. This was the price of the FOMC announcement. We had legs 1 and 2 of the whipsaw. When you cross back over it, you're supposed to have leg 3, which goes to a new high. But if it doesn't, once you go over it more than just by a trifle, it fails. And if it fails in grand style. Here was a hole in the wall gap. These things tend to fill. They usually fill in a day or two, and there's support. So we dropped to support, but so far we haven't managed to clear support on the way back up. The longer we stay down here, the greater the possibility that support becomes resistance and we go even further down. And that's true even though we generated a new MEJT target today of 39.47.57. There are 2 times these targets tend to fail. One's at major changes in trend, and the other is during periods of strong impulsive moves. They do print at some time, but if this is an impulse down, and it certainly could be, don't hold your breath waiting for this to print, because that's when the failures tend to occur. Here's what we said before. Compatible with a third wave down starting, and it sure looks that way as of now. There's nothing I've seen to invalidate that interpretation. If anything, today's action confirms it. During the day, we did have a buy signal, but the minimum target printed immediately. When the target prints, you don't have to go higher, but if you drop, the system marks it as a false move and says you'll recover. This drop is marked by the system is unsustainable. It gives us a target of 39.47.57. If we don't gap down smartly, that'll have to be the call. But it could fail, and this pattern could well gap down smartly and take it off the table. We have a tentative wave count here, and if we go under 38.98.81, particularly if we gap under this trend line tomorrow, I just don't see how we're going to recover from that. It's going to be pretty tough. Now, this is the wave count I'm using. It certainly isn't the only count. For one thing, I might be too generous. This could be waves of smaller degree. Could be a wave C down, not so bad. But if this counts right, you don't know that. If this counts right, we should look for a wave blue C, somewhat comparable to wave blue A, which was a straight line drop. Let's see if we can come up with some tentative targets. You'd like to have wave magenta C, have some kind of Fibonacci relationship to magenta A, and if that's the right count, you'd like to have wave blue C have some kind of Fibonacci relationship to magenta to blue A. Just forget the colors. I'm fickle with colors, but here we're making an ABC. Here's your B. We have this in wave C down. So far, it looks like this count for wave 1's correct. It sure looks like the count for waves 2 correct, and this should be a wave 3 down which doesn't appear to be complete to me. So let's try to calculate targets for this wave C. Again, ignore the colors. If this is the end of B, we have an A, we have a B, we're in wave 3 of C. The Fibonacci relationships to wave A here come in at 3756, 3611, and even 3389. Well, what you always want to do, what you also want to do is have this wave C have some relationship to wave A. Now you can measure from any one of a number of places. You can measure from the extreme or from the end of the wave. If you measure from the extreme, you don't really get any Fibonacci balance. But if you measure from the peak, you come pretty close, around 3389. That's not bad. But it's also legitimate to measure to the wave end. And whereas you don't get much confluence if you measure from the end of B, if you measure from the height of B, which is legitimate, you get great confluence at the 38.2 and 61.8 lengths. And that gives us all these other targets. So we have wave balance in the 3600s and the high 3300s. Doesn't mean that's the only way to count it. Doesn't mean other numbers don't work. But for this leg down, it certainly is plausible to see us hit the middle 3700s. And it creates a more pleasing picture from a wave count if we do have a straight line move down, not that we have to, but if we do, we have targets in the 3600s and even the 3300s. Those don't have to be the only targets, but they're certainly plausible ones. We just have to get a little bit more confirmation, but I don't see, frankly, how we recover from this. I've been wrong before. Tomorrow's pattern has the early high that could gap down. We're trading under the origin of a hole-in-the-wall gap, which is a support resistance area. So far, at least, it's holding as resistance. By going over the price at which the FOMC announcement was made and then failing to follow through higher, that pattern failed. Today's normally bullish pattern was negative instead, should lead to lower prices. Doesn't mean we have to close lower. The wave count's compatible with an impulse down with significantly lower targets, would take gapping and overtaking the high of day to invalidate these patterns, and that seems pretty unlikely to me. That being said, we still have a higher MEJT target. The rules say if we don't gap down smartly, it's favored to print, so we're obligated by the rules to use our rules for mixed signals. I think the chance we see that price tomorrow is pretty low. This is pretty negative action. Everything is compatible with much lower prices here. I still think undercutting 38.98.81 and this trend line, especially if we gap under it, if we gap under this trend line and undercut 38.98.81, I really think that would seal the deal. It's pretty precarious here to stay long. Now, until these things happen, I can still be proven wrong. I thought this was the end of it, and then we hit a new high. But I think this is pretty much a confluence of indicators telling us that the bulls are going to have trouble ahead, and it wouldn't take much more for confirmation, and it's pretty tough for me to see how we recover from today's action. And tomorrow has the early high. If we gap down under that trend line, look out below, and that's today's call.